Hello, this is Darren.
And this is Paige.
And this is
Where's the Lemonade?
Where we talk about what happens when life throws you lemons.
Make some lemonade?
Maybe. Some weeks it's lemon squares.
Yeah, some weeks it's just lemons.
Yeah. On today's episode,
we're going to talk about how to avoid toxic behaviors in our relationships.
Great. So this last week, you had an opportunity to go to a marriage and relationships class, or actually a conference, right?
A conference, a week-long conference. Yeah. It's called Education Week. I went with some friends. That'll be a different episode about that. But yeah, and this guy that spoke to us, he's a professor at BYU, and he was just so good. We just loved his advice and wisdom on how to navigate through relationships.
So I remember you would call every night and you were so excited. You go, oh, there's tons of things we can work on our relationship. I'm like going, great.
I know. I was sending you pictures of my notes. I know. I was wondering what you were thinking at home.
I actually enjoyed reading the notes that you took.
I was trying to get you just as excited as I was.
No, I'm actually pretty excited.
Well,
you
it was funny though,
some great stuff.
Because when I did tell you, you would go, well, aren't we doing okay? You would say that. You'd be like, how are we doing? And I'm like, sweetie, there's always room for improvement, right?
That's right. That's right.
So the first thing that he asked us to think about was what was the vision for our marriage? And, of course, that answer is different for everybody.
But you had an answer in your mind almost right away, right?
I did. And the vision for our marriage, I wrote this down, was good communication, which I know that sounds like a cheesy answer.
That's pretty cheesy, babe.
It is the foundation literally of everything. How you communicate and how much you communicate is just the basis of everything.
We've noticed an improvement in our marriage since we started doing the podcast because it's forcing us to talk about subjects that we normally wouldn't talk about in every day.
Yeah, I mean, in depth. We have to dig deep into some of these things.
Yeah, because we study for these, and then sometimes in the podcast, we uncover new things that we've never heard of before. And
I said good communication and fun, because I think without having fun in your marriage, that's also really bad. So that's what I put, good communication and fun. What do you think?
I would agree.
Do you like that?
I actually really like that.
I can't remember because I then asked you. I don't remember. I think your answers were similar.
Yeah. I did. I was afraid to answer without your answer first.
Because yours was it might be wrong.
It might be wrong, right? I want to make sure I had the right answer, right? Us men, we're like, oh no, this is a tough question.
Yeah.
What's the vision of our relationship?
Yeah,
oh no.
Tell me. Is
there a wrong? Yeah, there's a wrong answer, guys. I'll tell you that right now.
There is. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, he then went on to talk about the risk factors and danger signs that you're getting into toxic behavior. And the one thing he told us was that conflict is not always bad. He said conflict is actually kind of a good thing in relationships. In some relationships, if you know how to navigate the conflict, it can actually be kind of healthy. That, let's share our opinions and
you don't want someone you're married to that always says, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am.
That would be really boring.
No, well, not only boring, you would never know if your spouse ever have an opinion about it.
Yeah, and you feel like you're being patronized, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so he was just saying that certain patterns of conflict are bad, but conflict is not all bad. So That was interesting. Okay, so then let's talk about the danger signs that he talked about.
Okay.
So the first one was escalation. Is the first danger sign.
So when you're calling the cops, you're in a bad situation.
Oh, I don't think that we even got to that. I think
not escalating that high.
No.
So we want to stop before then.
Yes. No. So escalation, he said, was back and forth negativity, which is driven by defensiveness.
Ooh.
I know. And he said, it doesn't matter what you're discussing. You could be discussing what you're having for dinner or the dog or cleaning the kids. I mean, it can be
finances,
it can be big,
sex,
it can be small.
Ones.
Yeah, and it can be tiny. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't matter. You can be talking about the countertop, but it's how that
how you resolve conflict.
Yes, and it can escalate no matter what you're talking about. It can escalate. Doesn't matter if it's tiny, doesn't matter if it's big. It can escalate. So that was the first one, escalation.
So that's a danger sign, right? Danger
that is
sign.
a huge danger sign.
If you're always escalating in all of your conflicts, then you're not really resolving.
Right. And he had little clips of actual people that he recorded in.
Ooh, that'd be fascinating to see.
I know. It was actually kind of cool. And these are people that obviously agreed to have their clips shown because these are real people that are having real fights in his office.
Man.
And it showed these people that when they're discussing, I don't remember what they were discussing anymore, but it was just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. There was no patience or listening. It was just bam, 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 and just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So that was escalation.
Okay. What's next?
Invalidation, which I think this is huge in relationships.
Yeah, this could be really toxic.
Yes. So invalidation, that means partners put down the thoughts, feelings, or characters of their partner. So isn't that interesting?
That is.
I was recently just talking to a friend about a kind of an argument she had with her husband, and all she wanted from him
was validation.
Was him to say, yeah, that must really stink. Right? Like she was complaining and complaining. And he was just giving this, well, you should have done this. You should have done that. Right?
Well, it's men. We want to solve problems,
yes.
Right? So when you come to us, we don't recognize, oh, you just want validation. We say, all right, well, this is what we're going to do to fix the problem.
Right. And I think he was feeling defensive because she was saying, well, this is what's bothering me, right? And it had to do with him. And so he was saying, well, you could have done this. And all she needed him to say, when he finally did, he just said, that must be really hard.
That's all she needed.
Done.
Wow.
It was done.
But
so
this invalidation is even more than that.
Yes.
It's actually putting down your spouse, right? Like,
yes,
you're too dumb to understand.
Yes. Yeah.
Or, you have no context and you're telling me what to do here.
Right.
Yeah. That makes your spouse feel like
it's putting you down. And he said, it's like you're sitting on a perch, right? You're sitting on a perch and talking down to your spouse.
Yeah.
That's what invalidation is. So that was an interesting one. The third one was negative interpretations.
Okay, now what does this mean?
So this is something that you and I have talked about a ton.
Yeah.
So this means we assume our partner is being mean for the sake of being mean.
Instead of giving them the benefit of the doubt.
When he said that, I was like, we talk about that.
We
talk about giving people
times,
the benefit of the doubt. Like that's really important. Not just your spouse, your friends, people you interact with, to give people the benefit of the doubt, not assume that they're trying to hurt your feelings.
Or out to get you or whatever.
So, and then he also said in this one, giving people the benefit of the doubt, especially your spouse, if you're in a negative pattern, this really takes practice. This is not something that just comes easily.
Well, because you're already in this mode of when your spouse says something, they're trying to say something to hurt me or to get one up on me because we're in that, escalation pattern.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
So, and that, you can really get into a pattern of that. So, yeah. So when you're assuming that what they're saying, even though they don't deserve you assuming that, right?
No. I mean, if you've been in that escalation pattern a long time, then
yes,
probably.
But there are times when they've done nothing to deserve this, negative interpretation that you're making. This
so
negative
the
assumption.
negative interpretation, if you can counteract that, you can break that cycle of escalation.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Right. So that might take practice. So when you say, and you and I have talked about this before.
Yeah, we have.
We've said when we've gotten in an argument and then we've talked about it later and we've said, either you or I, what I was saying, I wasn't trying to hurt you.
You weren't trying to zing me or whatever.
Yeah. So it actually hurts the other person that you're even thinking negatively like that. Like, why would you think that I would want to hurt you like that? You know what I mean? So it goes both ways.
Causes that cycle even
yes.
deeper. All right, so that's a good one.
Yeah. So that takes practice, though, he said. And then the fourth one was avoidance and withdrawal.
Yeah, I understand this one really well. Right. I'm tired of fighting. I don't want to fight. I'll just let her have her way.
Yep.
Right. Or forget it. I'm not even going to talk about it anymore. We'll just do what we've been doing, even though whatever the issue is about.
So yeah, it's when one partner avoids talking about important issues, they shut down. Because like you just said it, either you're just like, you know what, I'm done. I don't want to have this conversation. Or it's just, you know what, I don't even want to go there. So just sure, whatever you want. Yeah. Which, that makes you feel like the person doesn't care. They don't want to talk. So he showed
and that's really bad for your relationship overall, right?
Terrible. He showed a video of two people doing this, a husband and wife, and the one person was just talking. And a lot of times the other person feels like, well, they're not even leaving me.
Yeah, they're not going to let me even talk.
So they're just sitting there going, looking at the floor, whatever, because they're just going, well, you're not even leaving me a minute to talk. So I'm not even going to bother. Right.
Okay, now that we found out the danger signs of toxic behavior, let's talk about what we can do to safely connect when we identify those danger signs. How do we counteract that, right?
Yeah. So how do we stop or prevent those danger signs that we just talked about? He said a lot of times when couples are in an argument, you don't know how to get out of the argument.
I can see that.
Which I thought was interesting.
I mean, there's things that you and I don't completely agree on still.
Right.
And when they come up, we don't resolve them all the way.
Yeah. But he said, sometimes it's becoming escalating. Maybe someone's withdrawing, any of these things. And you're just thinking, I just don't even know how I don't know how to proceed with this, but you're still both you want to be right. And so you just keep at it. So he said the best tool you can use is to call a timeout.
Oh, that frustrates me sometimes.
It does.
Yes, it does. I think you enjoy doing it.
That's not true. That is not true.
No, you're actually really good at it. It took me some time getting used to where you say, timeout, we're done arguing. This is going nowhere.
Well, and
we got to change something.
We don't actually use the words timeout. And he said, if you feel like the word timeout is too, cheesy or whatever, you don't even have to have a word. If you want to come up with your own word, whatever it is. But basically what it means is we're stopping. We're not going to keep discussing this. We're going to put it on hold.
Yeah, but you can't put it on hold forever, right?
No, he says you have to come back to it within 24 hours.
So when you call a timeout or a hold, your partner needs to know that that's what's happening. Otherwise, you're back into that avoidance and withdrawal. All I see is you withdrawing.
Exactly.
Right?
And so the person that calls the timeout is supposed to call time back in. Otherwise, the other person is going, okay, so they called the timeout. They just don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, they don't want to talk. All right, call a time in whenever I feel like it. That doesn't sound fair, right?
Yeah.
Isn't there a time limit on it?
Yeah, 24 hours. I said that.
20, oh, I didn't hear the 24 hours.
You have to call the time back in within 24 hours because you can't let the issue go unresolved, right?
Right.
You have to get back to it. But maybe you both need to simmer down. So he said there's nothing wrong with calling a timeout. In fact, it actually helps a lot of couples. Like, all right, you know what?
Well, it gives you time to calm down, think about what you were really saying.
And we do that. I do that. I should say we do that. I do that because you want to just go at it. And I'm like, I'm not sure what I want to say right now. I want to think about
that
it.
drives me crazy sometimes.
I want to ponder about something really good to say. Because that's what I always think, oh man, so I should have said this, right? I was coming up with something. So then maybe I'd like to take some time and come up with something really good.
Yeah, maybe. Now, you said something to me about this timeout thing, right?
Yes. What?
There's rules about what happens during the timeout.
Yes.
Right? It's not a free-for-all during the timeout.
There's do's and don'ts.
All right, so what are the don'ts first?
You don't plan your attack for when the timeout ends.
So your timeout is not like what you just said. I have to formulate my responses, right?
No. I'm not formulating my responses. I have to think and process. That's different. But he said you can't ruminate about your spouse, meaning you can't think about
all the horrible things they're done.
Yes. You don't set up a dartboard with their picture on it. You don't do things like that. So you don't plan your attack, but you do think about what is behind your anger, he said.
Well, that makes sense.
You think about what, and he said 99% of the time, what's behind your anger is hurt feelings.
Oh, that makes sense.
So when
I
you
could see that.
maybe call the time back in, what you can say is, you know what, this really started because my feelings were hurt because of this, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if you can calm down and think about why you were angry, not think about how horrible your spouse is. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. And then he also says to get your mind off of the fight during this time period. He said, watch a funny movie. He said he likes to watch The Office. So, something to get you chill.
To clear your mind.
Yep, clear your mind. Get the anger out. You need to get the anger to, dissipate. And he said some people meditate, whatever it is, but just something to help you chill, to calm you down.
And then you call a time back in.
Yep. You like to go clean.
Yeah, I do.
It's kind of awesome.
It's kind of, I think sometimes you get me upset so that, certain parts of the house get deep cleaning. Yeah, I
have never purposely gotten you upset, but I will definitely say that it has some benefits when you have been really upset. Because then I'm like, I hear things, doors slamming. I'm like, oh, is he cleaning the closet? Like, yeah.
Yeah, that's what normally happens.
So yes, you clean. You're either scrubbing the stove or yeah. And no, I can go watch a show.
Yeah, see those.
So those are the things you do and don't do when you're in your timeout.
Okay. Another really cool thing that you told me was about the importance of the conflict and the resolution of the conflict. You said it was being effective is more important than being right. Yes. Or even coming up with the right answer.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're effectively communicating with each other, that's even better than knowing that what you decided together would be the right answer forever going forward.
Right. Yeah. I wrote that down because I thought that when he said that, he said being effective is more important than being right. I was like, ooh, that is good.
That's a really interesting concept.
Because sometimes we get so stuck that we just want to be right. We want to have the last word and we want to be right. And that's not what's important. And that can take practice too.
I'm also thinking of something else. What if it's a really big decision? Maybe it's buying a new house and you just can't come to a conclusion. So you decide to be more effective and you decide, all right, we're going to be effective on our decision-making and we're going to take a risk and go out and buy this house. And what if it was the wrong decision? So is it best to be effective or make a wrong decision together? I would say probably be effective. When I heard this, that's the first thing that popped into my mind was...
Interesting, because I didn't even go there.
Wait, we can... Because there are some tough decisions you have to make as a couple that you may be acting out of fear on making that decision, which may cause a lot of tension in your relationship and may cause you not to be able to communicate effectively.
Yeah.
So that popped into my head. I was like, wow, being effective is more important than being right.
Right.
Not just personally, but as a couple too.
So don't let fear hold you back. When you're worried about being right and making the right decision, don't let fear hold you back.
Yeah, I think that can cause a lot of issues there too.
Yeah, interesting. So yeah, then he talked about what are the cues that your conversation is about to go off the rails. So that you're either about to escalate or you're about to do the whole avoidance withdrawal thing, or you're about, what are the cues? You got to learn to see those cues in yourself and in your spouse. So, and those cues are different. He had us write those down. He said, take a minute and think about what the cues are.
All right. So what did you write down? Because he didn't have a list on the board for this?
I don't think so. So
he said...
Because everybody's cues are different.
Gotcha.
Right?
All right. So what are our cues?
Well, I wrote down what my cues are. I don't know what yours are. So my cues were that our conversations, from what I'm doing that you could see, I wrote eye rolling.
Yeah, you do that.
When I'm starting to get annoyed, I'm just like, oh, gosh. So I put eye rolling, thinking that your spouse is ridiculous.
That never happens, ever.
I did write that because sometimes when we're in a fight and you say something and I'm like, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Like, I
Oh,
think, I have
yeah.
thought
And you've
that.
said that sometimes. That's ridiculous. And that just makes me want to defend myself.
Absolutely. So yes, most of the time I just think it in my head, but that's just as bad. Thinking it in your head is just as bad as saying.
Yeah,
it's not
because
just
you're
as bad.
just dismissing.
But
But you're dismissing anything that's going to come out of your mouth from that point forward.
You've just derailed the conversation when in your head you're just going, I cannot believe it. So for me, that's that. And then crying.
I don't cry in our arguments.
Crying. That's a cue.
That's a cue. So I know if you start crying, time out.
The conversation's about to go off the rails.
I already knew that.
So yes. So I don't know I haven't ever asked you what the cues that.
I thought about mine. It's when I give high contrast to the situation by coming up with an absurd story.
And that's when I go, that's the most ridiculous thing.
Yeah, exactly. Because that happens at work all the time. They go, to get my point across, I'm going to show you the opposite in such an extreme manner that you're going to say, well, of course yours is the right way. So that's a technique that people use at my work all the time. It drives me crazy. And I catch myself doing it with you.
Oh, interesting.
So I know it's going to go off the rails as soon as I pronounce something extreme.
Because then I'm about to roll my eyes. And it's just, right?
Yeah.
You get in that pattern.
So that's mine.
Okay. Interesting. Another thing he shared was most couples talk about important issues only when they're fighting about them.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, because sometimes those important issues are hot buttons. Otherwise, they wouldn't be important anymore. You've already resolved them.
Yeah. So that they're only coming up when you're in a fight about them.
Well, and when tensions are high.
Right.
When that issue has boiled to a point where something has to happen. That's probably.
So he suggested, and he said he and his wife have a weekly couples meeting. He said it's about 30 minutes, and he said it can't be date night. Date night cannot be the meeting.
The couples meeting.
Right. It cannot be when you're going to talk about important issues. Date night, he said, is solely for fun. And he said, make sure of that. Even if you've had a bad week together and you haven't seen eye to eye on things, date night has to be.
So you need to set everything aside for date night and just have fun.
You set it aside. You go have fun. You go to the movies. You go play miniature golf. You go rock. Whatever you're going to do, you don't discuss the big issues. Even if you've been discussing them all week and you've been in a fight all week, date night is solely just to go have fun. And
so explain this couples meeting then. How does this
work?
work?
He said for him and his wife, they kind of jot things down during the week that might come up. Like, oh, you know what? I kind of want to.
We need to talk about this.
Yeah, I want to discuss this at our meeting.
Does your spouse know what's on the list ahead of time?
He said they can, or it's up to you. And that's what I liked about him is there is no, manual for these things. You have to decide in your relationship what is best. So he said, sometimes you might want to show your spouse. You have a running list that you both add to. And he says, or if you'd rather have a separate list. And he said, and it's interesting, like maybe on Monday, your spouse says something and you're like, oh, that was kind of annoying. I want to make sure I bring that up at our couples meeting. He said by Thursday, you might look at your list and go, oh, I'm so over that. I don't need to bring that up anymore. And he said, so the list can change during.
So we haven't done this yet. Maybe we should start.
No, what do you think about that?
Do you want to share a common list? Huh? Put something like on a Google Drive or something?
Maybe.
There's no maybe, baby.
No, it's a maybe.
It's a yes or no.
I don't know how we'll react.
So you want to keep a separate list first?
Let's keep a separate list first. Because I don't know how we'll react by being
this. Oh, look, I'm put a zinger on the
I know. And
list.
I think that maybe that could cause an argument right then. Like I saw that you just put this on the list.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to discuss it today.
Right. So that's why I'm thinking maybe a separate list.
All right. We'll do a separate list at first.
He says it's only he said if you do it regularly, it doesn't have to be this big blow up because you're taking care of your little issues every week.
Every week. Yeah, that makes sense.
So he said it's usually him and his wife go to a quick, Chipotle or whatever. They have a 45-minute dinner without kids. And
half of it is going over the list.
Yeah. And he says that, once you're doing this every week and
it gets pretty good then.
It gets pretty good.
Well, because I think that might establish a partnership more than me and you. It's more of a partnership. We're attacking this relationship together. We're trying to make it work together.
Right.
So that's interesting.
So then he talked about things that couples argue over. And he says,
is there a list?
Yeah. He said there's triggering events. And he said these are the day-to-day things that can spark conflict.
Okay, like what?
I don't know. For everybody, it's different. What do you think it is for us? Day-to-day things that can spark conflict. I don't know. I mean, it could be, like,
my socks are on the floor, but you got over that years ago.
Right. Yeah. Or, you didn't put your dishes in the sink. It's just little small things.
Little small things.
Triggering events. Okay. Or it can be big things, I guess.
We can go all the way back to our triggers episode, right? Where we talked about. So that's the triggers we're talking about.
So triggering events.
Okay.
And then he said there's issues. And he said these are what give fuel to the conflicts that arise in the context of events.
Okay.
So that's a little more deep. And then there's hidden issues, which is even deeper. He said these are the unexpressed expectations.
So this is like if I have certain expectations of you, but I never say anything about it. I've never...
Right. These are needs.
I've avoided and withdrawn from those issues.
Needs and feelings that, if not attended to, cause conflict.
Ooh, hidden.
So yeah, he said this is what most people. Do
you write those on your list that you talk about eventually? Probably not right away.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you start with you just start on Monday and go, okay, this came up and I'm thinking about this. I'm going to add this to the list. Right? You're just adding things to the list. And your first couple of meetings will probably be a lot longer than
Well, that's a good question. I mean, should you limit your meetings to a certain amount of time and just say, that's all we're talking about this week?
Yeah, maybe. And just say, you know what? We only got to these 3 things, but that's okay.
They were the most important things.
Right.
Yeah. So you go first. We talk
Yeah.
about one. I go second. We talk about the next one on my list.
Yeah.
And give ourselves time. I like that approach than open-ended, because if it's open-ended,
right,
you'll feel like, well, I got to get through my list.
Right. Exactly.
Doesn't
that
matter.
could go on for hours and hours.
Yeah.
So those are things you can talk about. And then he said, and then we learned how to talk about issues without turning it into a fight. That's a whole other episode that how do you do that?
But I like the one thing that he said there I want to point out right away. That is, you as a couple see the issue as the thing you're trying to resolve, not changing your partner's mind. So it's almost like the issue is the enemy.
Absolutely.
We're going to tackle that issue. We're going to resolve it, get it out of our lives.
Right.
Right.
So tackling the issue instead of tackling your spouse and, oh my goodness, if they could just change, right? So yeah, I like what you just said.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like how you put that too. It would be like me putting my socks in the hamper, right? It's not me putting the socks in the hamper. It's my socks laying on the floor.
Right. Exactly.
Right? Or socks laying on the floor instead of Darren's socks.
Right.
So how do we resolve that issue?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And he said, when we're hurt, we often act with our gut, not our head. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. I would say feelings instead of gut. Emotions. Yeah, I guess it's the same thing.
Yeah, we're going with that gut reaction that we first feel, right? When we get our back up and we get a little upset.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So on our following up episode, we'll talk about how we discuss things without it getting turned into a big fight.
So overall, this conference was really great.
Oh, so great.
I remember how energized you were. You came back. I really loved, by the way, I really loved getting the little snippets that you sent me.
Oh, good.
Because you just took a picture of your notes and sent them to me. I loved it because I was like, wow, I'm glad that you didn't come back after that whole week and then just dump all this stuff onto your relationship.
That's what I was trying to. That's why I was sending you little pictures, because I thought I want him to see, today I learned this.
And then we talked about it at night, which was great.
Yeah, instead of getting you what I learned for 5 days.
Just what a man wants.
Right.
All right, I'm going to tell you what's wrong with our relationship.
Exactly.
It's like that song, the Pink song. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Where it's a duet with whatever his name is. Who knows his name? Pink.
Yes.
Scenes
And she says, "Oh, we've got a problem." And he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about."
I have no idea what you're
he
talking
says,
about.
"I think everything's fine."
Yeah, exactly.
And she's like, "No, we're broken." And he's like, "What?" Yeah.
Okay, our lemonade moment of the week has to do with one of our kids.
Yes, Dallin.
We're very proud of you, buddy.
We are. He graduated from college in August?
Yeah.
And he's been looking for work, and he ended up landing a really great job just this last week.
So we get to see him. He's coming home to see us for 2 or 3 weeks until he starts his new job. So we get time with him. He's excited. It's been it caused me to get white hair worrying about him getting a job.
Yeah. No, it's a great opportunity for him, and we're so happy when we see our kids, start to find their career paths, and it's so good to see that, them going and making these decisions, and he's going to live in a great place, and it'll be a little bit closer to us, and we're excited for him.
Great job, bub.
If you like today's episode,
give us 5 stars on iTunes, Spotify, Google.
And head to Facebook and like us.
And check out our blog at where'sthelemonade.org.
Where you can leave questions and comments.
But most of all,
go out and make some lemonade.
You betcha, baby.
On next week's episode,
we're going to talk about the importance of girls' trips and how us men have to kind of learn how to accept that a little bit.